This is Radio Nepal. I'm Kaushal Ghimire with the news. The headlines first. National Assembly endorses government's policies and programs for the upcoming fiscal year. Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda stresses on joint effort for the implementation of government's policies and programs. District Attorney Office preparing to register cases pertaining to fake Bhutanese refugee scam in courts today. And U.S. distances itself from the Belgorod incursion into Russia. Now the news in detail. The National Assembly has endorsed the government's policies and programs for the upcoming fiscal year. Yesterday's session of the National Assembly approved the policies and programs with a majority. Amendment proposals put forth by MPs Tulasa Kumari Dahal, Bimala Ghimire and Dr. Bimala Rai Paudel were rejected by the majority. Prior to the endorsement, Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda responded to the queries raised by the MPs during the deliberation over the policies and programs yesterday. On the occasion, the Prime Minister appealed for coordinated efforts for the implementation of the policies and programs. Prime Minister Dahal said the policies and programs presented by the government in the parliament were focused on increasing production and creating jobs. The Prime Minister expressed his belief that the policies and programs would strengthen federalism, make structural reforms, and revive the country's economy. He mentioned that the policies and programs were presented with the determination to achieve supreme goal of building prosperous, strong, and just Nepal, protecting national sovereignty, territorial integrity, independence, and national interest. Meanwhile, in the House of Representatives, the deliberation on the government's policies and programs continued yesterday as well. During the deliberations, the lawmakers from the ruling coalition supported the policies and programs, while the lawmakers from the opposition parties opposed them. A joint meeting of the Federal Parliament has been called for today to discuss the draft report on the Joint Operation Regulations of the Federal Parliament. The meeting is scheduled for 4 o'clock this afternoon. This information was shared by Speaker Debraj Ghimire in yesterday's meeting of the House of Representatives. The next meeting of the House of Representatives will be held at 11 in the morning today to continue deliberations on the government's policies and programs for the fiscal year 2080-81. The government has decided to celebrate Asoj 2nd as National Education Day. Talking to journalists after the cabinet meeting yesterday, Communication Minister and government spokesperson Rekha Sharma said the government had also decided to accept the aid and concessional loans from the government of Japan and the World Bank. The development partners are providing the assistance under the Global Partnership for Education program. As shared by Minister Sharma, the government has also given approval in principle for formulation of a bill related to the customs rate. Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda has insisted on sustainable management of the forest and promotion of timber exports. Addressing the 7th National General Convention of the Federation of Community Forest Users in Nepal in Kathmandu yesterday, Prime Minister Dahal said sustainable management of community forest would ensure additional benefits for the local community, increasing the national revenue. The Prime Minister promised the restructuring of forests, their conservation, management and promotion in line with federalism. Minister for Communication and Information Technology Rekha Sharma has said the distribution of public welfare advertisement will not be halted. Receiving a memorandum from a delegation of the Valley Province Committee of the Federation of Nepali Journalists yesterday, Minister Sharma pledged to provide fund for public welfare advertisement at any cost. The Communication Minister also urged the Valley Province Committee of the Federation of Nepali Journalists to call off their protest program. The District Attorney Office Kathmandu is making the final preparations to file the cases in the court on fake Bhutanese refugee scam. An 8-member committee formed for the prosecution is preparing the charge sheet after studying the report submitted by the Nepal police on Monday, according to the chief of the District Attorney Office Kathmandu, Achyutmani Nyupane. He said they are preparing to register the case on Wednesday, that is today. The prosecution could be lodged by making some changes on police comments. The police on Monday had submitted its investigation report on the accusations of taking millions of rupees from Nepali citizens, promising them to send them to the United States in guise of Bhutanese refugees. On the case, 16 individuals, including former ministers, government secretary, and others, are in the police net. Superintendent of Police SP Sitaram Rijal said that the filing of cases was recommended to 17 others in relation to the scam. According to the law experts, they will face charge against treason, fraud, and organized crime. Likewise, the police have recommended to write to the Department of Anti-Money Laundering and the Commission for Investigation of Abuse of Authority for further investigation into the case. Meanwhile, the Kathmandu District Court yesterday permitted the police to keep 16 arrestees in connection to the fake Bhutanese refugee scam for 2 more days in custody. Superintendent of Police of District Police Range Kathmandu, Sitaram Rijal, said the court granted 2 more days after the accused were presented before the court seeking extension. President Ramchandra Paudel has appointed Birendra Prasad Mahato to the post of Minister for Forest and Environment and Pramila Kumari to the post of Minister of State for Education, Science and Technology. Both of them are from Janta Samajwadi Party. Issuing a statement yesterday, the office of the President said President Paudel appointed the ministers at the recommendation of the Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda. Noted climber Kami Rita Sherpa has scaled Mount Everest or Sagarmatha for the 28th time. He reached the summit of the world's highest peak at 9 hours 23 minutes yesterday morning for the 28th time. With this, he broke his previous record of the highest number of ascents on Mount Everest. This is his second expedition to the world's highest peak this spring season. He scaled the peak 27th time just a week ago on the 17th of May. The 53-year-old climber has a record of 40 summits to the mountains above 8,000 meters from the sea level. Meanwhile, President Ramchandra Paudel and Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda have congratulated double amputee Mount Everest climber Hari Bahadur Buddha. Buddha climbed the world's highest peak on the 19th of May. He set a record to become the first double amputee mountaineer climbing the Mount Everest. An earthquake occurred with its epicenter in Daulichor, Bajang district this morning. According to the National Earthquake Monitoring and Research Center, Lainchor, the 4.5 magnitude earthquake took place with its epicenter around the Daulichor of Bajang district at around 4 this morning. Earlier, an earthquake measuring 4.1 on the Richter scale had occurred with the epicenter in Hukam of Rukum East on May 21st. Of late, earthquake has become a recurring phenomenon in the eastern and western areas of Nepal. Nepal's hilly and mountainous regions are considered as earthquake-vulnerable areas. You're listening to Radio Nepal's 8 a.m. English News Bulletin. Now on to some international updates. The U.S. has distanced itself from an incursion into Russia which Moscow says ended in the defeat of armed insurgents who entered from Ukraine. According to the BBC, parts of the border region of Belgorod came under attack on Monday in one of the most major cross-border raids since Russia invaded its neighbor last year. Russia later released pictures of abandoned or damaged Western military vehicles, including U.S.-made Humvees. The U.S. insisted it did not encourage or enable strikers inside of Russia. Villages in Belgorod near the border were evacuated after coming under shell fire. Russia says 70 attackers were killed and has insisted the fighters were Ukrainian. But Kyiv denied its involvement, and 2 Russian paramilitary groups opposed to Russian President Vladimir Putin say they were behind the incursion. A week-long truce bordered by the US and Saudi Arabia in Sudan, designed to allow the delivery of aid, is at stake as residents report ongoing fighting. According to the Al Jazeera, residents in capital Khartoum have reported artillery fires and warplanes flying above Sudan's capital less than a day after an internationally monitored ceasefire came into force. Now, the general weather forecast for the country for today, according to the Meteorological Forecasting Division. The weather will be mostly cloudy throughout the country today. Light to moderate rain with thunder and lightning and gusty wind is likely to occur at some places of the hilly regions of the country and at a few places of the remaining parts of the country. There are also chances of heavy rainfall with thunder and lightning at one or two places of Kosi Province, Bagmati Province and Gandaki Province. Kathmandu's with the weather report for the past 24 hours, the maximum temperature was recorded at 24.9 degrees Celsius and the minimum temperature was recorded at 18.8 degrees Celsius. Well, that's all the news we have for this bulletin, but before wrapping up, the headlines once again. National Assembly endorses government's policies and programs for the upcoming fiscal year. Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal Prachanda stresses on need on joint effort for the implementation of government's policies and programs. District Attorney Office Kathmandu preparing to register cases pertaining to fake Buddhist refugee scam in court today, and US distances itself from Belgorod incursion into Russia. Well, that's all the news we have for this bulletin. Our next bulletin in English will be at 2 in the afternoon. You can also listen to us online at our website, www.onlineradionepal.gov.np. Keep listening to Radio Nepal and have a good day.